BSides DC would like to thank all of our sponsors, and a special thank you to all of our speakers, volunteers, and organizers for making 2018 a success.
Cryptocurrency is an asymmetric weapon. What the hell is this jackass up at the front of the stage talking about? Anybody know what asymmetric means? No, I'm serious. Answer me. Wow! In terms of warfare, try again, smartass. Yes?
The advantage lies heavily on one side.
Why? You're right. Why? Okay, let me ask you a question. Back in the Revolutionary War, okay, the American Revolutionary War, we had an asymmetric war. What happened was the British lined up in ranks because that's what civilized nations do, right? The Americans were behind trees going, idiot, whack, right? That's asymmetric. They're not operating on the same principles. Does that make sense? So the side operating on the principles of we're going to win and we don't care what it looks like, they have the advantage, don't they? When you're going overhead, well look, they're operating under guerrilla warfare. The other word for asymmetric is pretty much guerrilla warfare, right? So that's what we're talking about. So that's asymmetric warfare. Now, or an asymmetric weapon in this case. But cryptocurrency, what's asymmetric about cryptocurrency? You know what, I'm jumping ahead. Let's start with the beginnings. This is me. I'm the COO of Red Lion. What does that mean? I'm the Chief Operating Officer of a small consulting company. We do compliance. We do advisory services. We actually have a subsidiary or a separate company that actually has a blockchain product coming out in the near future. I will talk about that under NDA. I graduated from Mach 37. I'm a member of several different organizations. I run BSides Delaware, which is in 2 weeks, hint, hint, November 9th and 10th. If you want to show up in Wilmington, you can. Thank you, janitor. I sleep occasionally. Running multiple companies leaves very little time for what's known as these hobby things. I do a lot of speaking. Okay. All right, so let's start with the basics. Can you hack as an economic weapon? Yes or no? Yes. I mean, I put it on screen, man. Okay? You can hack as an economic weapon. It's really that simple. Normally I shut everything down before I start speaking. I didn't have time, bear with me. I can hack Sony and send the stock down 10%. You can literally, and by the way, there's research to prove this, you can use pump and dump tactics on stocks. I can throw a lot of effort into social media and media, standard media publicist style stuff going, this company's awesome, this company's amazing, this company is sexy. The stock price goes up, right? All right, I've bought it before. All right, or I haven't bought it before. You can also do a dump and pump. It's a bit weird, but the point is that at any point I can rise the stock price by using my extreme Google foo, which also means Google AdWords foo, right? And raise the price of the stock even just slightly. I can also make it go down because I can release that dump of passwords and usernames, and the breach that happened maybe 2 years ago, who knows? But all of a sudden there's 100,000 user accounts. Hey Mac, you want to buy a user account? Right? Make sense to everybody? I can lower the stock price at will. I can raise the stock price at will. Can I manipulate that stock price doing that? Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? Okay, so that's stock. That's not crypto. What the hell is he talking about? Well, cryptocurrency is a hacking weapon, all right? How many cryptocurrencies, tokens, have been deemed scams? Let's do a show of hands. How many people believe that out of the roughly 1,000, it's actually 900 and something, tokenized cryptocurrencies that have come out in the last couple of years, more than 50% of them were scams? Raise your hands or not. Hold your hands up. How many of them think 60%? 70%? 80%? 81%? Yep. 81% of the cryptocurrencies that have come out in the last couple of years have been seen to be as scams. Pump and dumps. Also, of course, there's our favorite darknet markets that just suck up your Bitcoin and all your fun cryptos and go away. All that kind of stuff, okay? Exit scams are, how common are exit scams in markets on the darknet? Like Universal? They are literally sites on the darknet that are how to find darknet markets that say right at the top of them, all markets are exit scams. Use them carefully. But here's your list of markets. Okay. So we now have cryptocurrencies as weapons. We can manipulate stock prices. We can manipulate cryptocurrencies. What does he mean? So, back up. What was the high of Bitcoin? The entire history high. Anybody know? 19,000 something. That's close enough. We'll call it 19,000. What's the lowest it's been since it actually ramped up to there? 6. There is mathematics that I won't get into that says that everything from about 8 up was manipulation. 8,000 up was manipulation. They raised over 11,000, roughly, dollars in value per Bitcoin on manipulation. Again, we're talking pump and dump, or in this case just pump, and then they dumped it. Okay? When they dump it, it drops the value pretty significantly. What do we see? A ramp up, woof, and then it came back up again a little bit, right? What's it now? Anybody? 6,500? Okay. 6,500 to 9,000. Okay. Let me get a little economic here, and I'm sorry. How many yen does a dollar buy you? Guess. 100. Did you look up the price? How did you know 100? It's what it's always been. How many dollars does a Canadian dollar get you? What's that? A Canadian dollar actually gets you about, so an American dollar gets you about $1.25 in Canadian. A Canadian dollar gets you about 75 cents, okay? That's because that's what it's always been. There are resting points for currencies. Are they logical? No, God, no, they're not logical. It's just what we expect them to be, so we make them that way with our collective will. After all, fiat money is nothing but the collective will and goodwill of the American and various foreign government peoples, right? Okay. So now we're talking about the fact that we can actually understand the resting points of various currencies. Now, you've seen the news story. Bitcoin will be $100,000. Wrong. Why? Because if it was going to be, it would never have dropped at 18. It would have kept going. It would still be on the rise. The resting point of Bitcoin is going to be somewhere around 7 to 7,500. My prediction, call it what you will. Please feel free to say, you're an idiot. It doesn't matter to me. My wife says it all the time. I'm kidding. She never says that in front of me. So in all seriousness, that's what I believe. Some people think it'll be 8,000. Still, I call it, right around the same place. Do you know what I mean? So we've got resting points for currency. Regular currency, fiat currency, and cryptocurrency. We can manipulate them. We can manipulate stock prices. Can I use all these different manipulations to perform economic weaponry, economic warfare? The answer is yes. Now, has it been done? I have not done this research, honestly, because I'm a little scared of what I'll find. If I can manipulate a cryptocurrency to go up in price and thereby make enough money that I can then buy some stock, okay, and then I don't care about the cryptocurrency anymore, do I? But cryptocurrency is so volatile, how fast can I make that money? A lot faster than if I invest in AT&T, right? So, if I can do, this is the short version, okay. We might be really fast on this talk, sorry. If I can use cryptocurrency to build myself a nest egg, if you will, all right, then I can use that nest egg to buy stock. I can manipulate the cryptocurrency to build my nest egg. I then dump it, buy my stock nest egg, I manipulate it, I drop it, and to further accentuate the drop, as I sell, I release breach data. How hard is that to do? Let's be honest. How hard is it to find breach data about a company? Pick a company, I don't really care. Is it hard? If you guys honestly went looking, could you pick a company almost at random out of the Fortune 5,000 and find breach data about it from the last 5 years? Pretty damn close. You might want to be a little more specific, not just try this at random, but you get the idea, right? If I can find breach data about a company, I don't care if it's a year old. I don't care if it's 2 years old. I really don't. It's public perception. Okay, let me give you an example. We have the TSA. Who here likes the TSA? Yeah, I didn't expect many. How many think the TSA do a good job? You are not patriotic. You horrible, horrible people. So how many people think you could do more damage on Black Friday than the TSA could ever ameliorate or remediate? Do you know what Black Friday is? Do you realize that if you shut down shopping on Black Friday with some threats and a couple of quickies, you'll do more damage than the TSA has ever, ever, ever averted? I mean, I think it's 6% of GDPR of the entire country for the entire year happens on Black Friday. I could be wrong, it's single digits, but it's single digits of the entire country's economy. If I can shut down Black Friday, well, hell, I can do a lot of damage, can't I? Like I said, I'm supposed to turn everything off. But when they tell you you're a speaker 3 minutes ahead of time, it's kind of awkward. So the point is, that's again asymmetric warfare. If I can make some phone calls and cause more damage than the TSA has ever fixed or averted, that's asymmetric warfare. Cryptocurrency can be used for asymmetric warfare because I can pump it, dump it, pump a stock, sell a stock, increase the dump with a breach, and walk away with millions of dollars. Now, if any of you are aspiring black hats, come up here, I'll get you arrested, it's not a problem. Please don't utilize this technology, and I've deliberately left out enough details that it's not easy to do. Honestly, you're smart enough, you can figure it out in, I'm guessing, 15 minutes, okay? Most of the 15 minutes will be involved with navigating the incredible arcane stock market regulations. But honestly, it's not a big deal. So let's talk about this. This, I said, is the short version of the talk. I really didn't intend for it to be given for an hour. But what I want to do is ask you something. Now that you understand what asymmetric warfare is, how many of you, show of hands, think that you could potentially figure out, give it a year, in a year could figure out how to do this? How many of you go, wow, that's interesting, I never thought about it that way? How many of you are wondering why I'm not talking about hacking Ethereum dApps? I'm not that speaker, I'm a replacement speaker. But cute. See, a lot of times what I do is I don't think about the technology of a system, I think about the business logic of a system. Every system you build, everything you build is based on the business. If it's not, you're not increasing value. And remember, what's one of the big tenets of cryptocurrency? We may not increase fiat, but we increase value, right? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Wow, okay. When you buy Bitcoin at $1,000 and it goes to 2,000, have you increased your US dollars in your pocket? No, it's not in your pocket, it's potential. But you've increased the value in the world. It's like when somebody slashes the market cap of a company by half, they've reduced the value in the world. In this case, we're increasing the value. So as Bitcoiners, or Ethereum, or Dogecoin, or altcoin, or darkcoin, or Litecoin, or, okay, maybe not Monero. No, I'm just kidding. We increase the value of our environment. We increase the value of the world. And believe it or not, but effectively, this is all about perception. We perceive that we've increased value, we believe we've done good, even though we've burned more energy than Ireland. Okay? If you perceive that something is breached, if you perceive that something is wrong, you have a problem. And you can actually lose your job as a security person, even if a breach never actually happened. There have been times, okay, I gotta tell you a funny story. There have been times that a breach didn't happen and dummy data was released deliberately to see who would try to use it, and people have been fired because people thought that it was an actual breach. Honeypot type stuff. The honeypot gets seized, the data's like, woohoo, we stole data from company X. They sell the data gets out in the wild, the data gets back, and somebody gets fired because we lost data, we were breached. No, that's our dummy data. You're calling me a dummy? No, that's fake data. No, it's not, it's real data. It's happened, it's horrifying, it's annoying, but it happens. Perception trumps reality. In this case, we're talking about the ability of cryptocurrency to trump the perception of a normally logical group of people and actually cause economic harm. If I slash the market cap of a company because I send out breach data at the same time that I'm dumping stock in it, could you cause a run on the stock? Yes. If I can cause a run on a stock, can I close the company down? Oh, cool. Who here hates their company? Is it a public company? Okay, so again, this is a short talk. Let me ask you a question. What questions do you have about this? Did I seriously confuse you? Did it make sense what I said? Talk to me. Sorry? Shortest comment ever. Okay, TLDR, makes sense, good. What's that? Okay. So this is the cool part. Who knows who the biggest Bitcoin mining farms are? Where they are, for example? Anybody? China. Why China? Energy is cheap near the hydroelectric dams, right? And they've got these weird taxes about energy, so it actually reduces the taxes if you concentrate the use of energy. I don't know why, but okay, whatever. Now they've been outlawing, I think I have it on here, China authorities have banned token sales, local exchanges are closing down. This is a regulation of cryptocurrency. Why? Because they're scared. Part of it is because they're scared they're losing out on taxes, let's be honest. Taxation is theft. But a part of it is because they're scared of how these things can work against them. Now China's actually closing down Bitcoin mining. I'm not sure if they fully outlawed it, but I mean, can you imagine China going, you know what, let's not outlaw it, but now we own all of it. What if China actually said, you know what, let's drop a few billion yen into more Bitcoin mining. Does anybody know what the 51% problem is? Seriously, does anybody know what it is? Okay, PW, what's the 51% problem?
If I own 51% of the mining capacity, I can effectively double spend or reduce, I can reverse a transaction. So you would create a transaction, you post it to the blockchain, then I would move my mining capacity to a different part of the blockchain, reproducing better blockchain without that transaction.
I can unwind and rewind the blockchain because I have the majority of the voters that verify the blockchain. Does that make sense to everybody? So there actually happened, I think it was Gigahash, I don't remember, that actually figured out, oh my God, they were a pooling company, so everybody bought into their pool type of thing. I have this capacity, I'm gonna buy into the pool, and then I get a percentage of any wins. They realized they had more than 51%, and they voluntarily shed some of their capacity. Well, that was a while ago when everybody was all like, singing Kumbaya and crap, okay? Now, China's like, we own 40, I think it's 47%. It really isn't hard for them to get to 51 if they wanted to. If they could do that and start double spending and reduce all of the trust in Bitcoin, would that be a problem? Only if you own lots of Bitcoin, and some people do. They might get upset, or they might just lose all their money to China. What does that mean?
So the problem is,
Go ahead.
if you own 51% of mining, you also have a substantial stake in Bitcoin, right? Not in owning Bitcoin, right? But in
The future of.
in the environment or in Bitcoin continuing as a going concern.
Right.
So you can make one-time profits effectively selling Bitcoin futures and then destroying the entire thing, but you effectively shot yourself in the foot relative to mining.
But do you think China cares? This is a good question. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question? For the mic so I can watch this later on YouTube?
Sure. So the idea is, why is a 51% problem a problem? So a 51%, the 51% problem is defined as if one entity, whether it's a nation state, a person, a company, or whatever, has more than 51% of the mining capacity of the entire Bitcoin mining pool, they can effectively rewrite the blockchain. So far, so good? Okay. At that point, whoever owns 51% of the capacity, 51 or more percent, it's actually 50.1, but everybody just abbreviates it as 51%. Anything more than half, it's controlling interest. Okay, makes sense to everybody? Anybody who has controlling interest in the Bitcoin mining pool, as PW says, they should have an interest in it, which means they shouldn't screw with it because it screws up their investments. But in reality, it not only can screw up their investments, but it can also increase their investments because they can rewrite transactions. They get to rewrite history as it happens to be favorable to them. Oh, we don't like that that transaction happened. It never happened. Make sense to everybody? Now, there are things that you cannot undo. For example, my 3.5-month-old back there. I can't undo her, nor would I want to. Okay? Oh, wow, I think this is her first time being mentioned in a talk. Don't worry, there'll be more, honey. Yes, actually she does, and I don't control it. It's been set up along with the other novelty accounts for me. Baby Quadling? Baby Quadling, Quadling Hat, Quadling Voice, they're all novelty accounts I don't control. I interact with it, weirdly enough, but anyway. So, with these kinds of problems, oh dear God. With these kinds of problems, you have an issue with the trust placed into blockchain. If you have an issue with the trust placed into blockchain, you can't use it. Again, asymmetric warfare. I may have to spend money to do that, but for China, how much money do they actually have to spend? I mean, let's be honest, it's pennies to them, and they get to control hundreds of billions of dollars worth of US dollars, or their equivalent, without firing a shot, without losing a single life. That's another method of asymmetric economic warfare, don't you think? Pretty cool stuff. Are there other ways? Well, let's talk about the original topic you were here to talk about. What if I can find a flaw in Ethereum smart contracts? If I can find a flaw in smart contracts, can I make off with millions, tens of millions of dollars and force Ethereum to do a hard fork? Oh wait, that happened. Okay. Who here owns Ethereum Classic? It's Classic, right? I'm not hallucinating? Am I correct? It's Ethereum Classic? And what's the new one? Just plain Ethereum, right? Okay, who here owns any Ethereum Classic? Does anybody own regular Ethereum? 2 people. And you're all here to talk on smart contracts. You might want to get some gas, people. Good pun, huh? All right. There are a lot of ways that you can utilize cryptocurrency in an economic warfare fashion. There are a lot of ways that you can utilize cryptocurrency in economics. There are a lot of ways that cryptocurrency is upsetting the apple cart, if you will, of economics badly. If you understand what those are, you can use them and manipulate them. There's a gentleman here who has the title, self-given, of information arbitrageur. What it means is he takes information cheap that he buys in cheaply and sells dearly, sells expensively. He's exploiting the arbitrage, or the difference in price of information. Cryptocurrency has a very unique system right now in that there's an arbitrage in value. People that don't understand this will pay a lot of money for it. People that understand these things might not pay as much. You can buy from one, sell to the other, vice versa. It's an interesting place in history we lie in right now. Smart contracts, just because I want to give you some value for what you expected to get, are a way that we can use that value by utilizing not machine learning. Anybody that says that gets immediately dunked. And anybody that says AI, I'm just going to defenestrate. But we get to utilize machine rules and machine logic, okay, to actually manipulate and regulate behavior and activities. That's what smart contracts are, right? Okay. I know dApps are not just smart contracts, but I love smart contracts. I think they're fun, and they're interesting, and they're exciting. Think of them as a programming language. They are written in a programming language, but think of them as a programming language. Do you know the programming language they are? It's called business logic. Understand what you are writing, not in terms of code, but in terms of logic. Let me give you an example. Every time that I've ever written out a comp plan for a group of salespeople, I've written it out to say, I want you to sell these things, not these things. Okay, because I want to get rid of these things, right? I'm going to put sales on them, discounts on them, whatever, right? I want you to sell the hell out of these things. They go, well, I make more commission on these. Every time we've spent 3 months writing a sales compensation plan for salespeople, it takes them 15 minutes and they can figure out how to sell more of these and leave me with these in the warehouse high and dry. People do what you pay them to. If you pay them to break your smart contract, guess what they're going to do? Okay? Don't forget that. You want to find flaws in it? Yeah, do some code review. Look at your code. You really want to find where people are going to screw with you? Look at your business logic. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, and realistically, in a sort of way, that actually relates. We're talking about business and money and economics here. We're not talking about programming. We're not talking about mining. We're not talking about consensus algorithms. We're talking about where do people make a dime? Where do they make $1? Where do they make $6,000, $18,000? Where can they buy things that you cannot trace? I don't know. How about the dark web? How about using this scary cryptocurrency stuff? Okay? So it's awkward. What time did I start? 2:30? Roughly? Okay. I'll go for another minute. It's awkward in the law enforcement world. By the way, I spent, 4 weeks ago, I spent 3 hours explaining how to trace a single Bitcoin through a transaction node to the highest anti-money laundering society in the country. They had no idea. They were like, how do we check if people are using this stuff to launder money? Like, oh, why don't you just trace the transactions? I mean, at least you can see what they're doing with it, right? They're like, you can do that? Well, that's the point. Of course you can do that. They had no idea. None. Who here understands about Merkle trees and hashing and things like that? Anybody? You want to do dApps and you don't know what Merkle trees are? I got another talk I can give you. So let me ask you a question. Why are you guys here? If you're here to talk about smart contracts, are you here to learn how to program them? I'm serious. Answer me. Somebody. Yes, it was. What was the talk supposed to be? Oh, I'm going to defenestrate you. It was actually an AI talk? Awesome. I'm so glad they left. No, I'm not. AI is amazing stuff, but it is not the stuff of magic or science fiction. Machine learning is a much more apt name. Anyway, so they told me it was a smart contracts talk. That's hilarious. Okay, anyway. So we've gone over business logic as it relates to cryptocurrency. We've gone over business logic as it relates to economics. We've gone over business logic as it relates to activism and stock prices, cryptocurrency prices, fiat prices. And we've gone over regulation and how country and nation states can be part of your threat model. That's terrifying. They literally have a threat model where a nation state can be part of it, and they don't have to lift a finger except make a few suggestions to the people under their rule. So that's bad. Does that worry anybody? You're like, well, what does it matter to me? Well, who here has a 401k or a retirement account? That 401k is invested in what? Stocks and bonds. If those stocks and bonds go, does it hurt? Do you want that to happen? Amazing. Does it matter to you now?
Buy more stocks.
Yeah, because you'll have all the money to, no, you won't. In all seriousness, I mean, I'm making a joke out of it, but it's not a joke. The volatility of the cryptocurrencies and the subsequent volatility of the stocks to hacktivism is actually worrisome for those of us who, and I don't mean to sound this way, but for those of us who look at things in a slightly larger scope. It actually is incredibly worrisome in that there are single individuals, groups of individuals, and crews of individuals who can manipulate our entire world and our net worth. That's worrisome. And so that's what this is about. Any questions? Yes?
So how does pumping and dumping on a few companies translate into like what it sounds like sending a country into an economic recession?
Very cool. Great question. So if I take a small company, like Tenable just IPO'd. If I take Tenable and turn them into the toilet, I'm not picking on Tenable, it's just the first thing I can think of recent IPOs, okay? Is anybody's 401k going to be trashed? The people at Tenable, yes, but not very many others. Do you know what I'm saying? But if I can take a few companies on the S&P 500 or in the Dow, which is watched by many, many more people, does that make sense? Then can I, the question was, what does it matter if a few companies get their stocks trashed? How does that translate into an economic recession? And the answer is, if you pick the right companies and you have the right data, which you can find over years and years and years, and you can destroy a company on the S&P 500, yes, you can do some nasty things to an entire country's, the Dow Jones Index. If it starts going down, even if the market's having a good day, or let's say the market's being neutral that day, and I can trash one of the big foundational companies of the S&P 500, let's say, is that going to bring the S&P 500 down? Yes. Is it enough to really matter? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on how big a component of the S&P 500 that one company was, right? But what if I do it to 5 companies or 10 companies? Okay? But that's a lot of planning. Yeah. We're talking about a concerted effort by a group of individuals. How many of you think that with the methodology that I've laid out, as skeletal as it is, and I skeletonized it pretty harshly, that you could figure this out? If I gave you a year, fed you, clothed you, took care of your needs for a year, you could, and all you did was study how to do this and get the data and build to do this, you could do this after a year or 2. Anybody who thinks they could do it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe let's say 10. I can do it to 10 companies next year. Investment of about $1 million. I'll probably make about $100 million on the pump part of that. Do you know what I'm saying? Or I could just short it and go on margin, right? And if I go on margin, it costs exactly, what does margin cost these days? There's a cost for a margin call, and I forget how much it is, but it's a percentage, right? So let's say I've got a few $100,000 into that, and $1 million to pay all you guys for the year, so you can study to do to find the breaches and get all the data, right? That stuff. So with an investment of $1.5 million, I can cause and make myself $100 million and cause about $500 million in damage. That might not be a recession, but let's say it happens that week, and then 3 weeks later, and then 2 weeks later, and then 1 week later, 10 companies at a time, 10 companies, 9 companies, 12 companies, 15 companies. You get the idea? That's going to hurt a country pretty harshly, won't it?
Would people catch on that selling random stocks all at once and a brief disclosure of some damaging information doesn't necessarily translate into the company doing worse?
That is a great question. Won't people realize, yes, honey? Won't people, sorry, I love this one. Won't people realize that, every week I see companies getting short sold and there's a pattern there, right? Won't they realize this pattern and track it back to me and find me? And so high frequency trading means that all I got to do is build a high frequency trading bot, which by the way, there's publicly open source code for this stuff. And I don't sell the stock in blocks of 15,000 and 50,000, 100,000 shares. I buy and sell it in blocks of 3, 5, 9, 1, 16 and a half, whatever, it doesn't matter. Do you get the idea? Does that make sense? Do you know what high frequency trading is? High frequency trading is the idea that we used to do stock with people. I would buy 500 shares. I would sell 10,000 shares. We don't do that anymore most of the time. There are still pits, what they call pits, where they actually do buy and sell the shares. Those are mostly futures pits now. Really, most stock is sold by bots. And stock is sold in a share at a time, 20 shares at a time, 50 shares at a time. 100 is actually a big transaction right now. But you do it every 0.3 of a second, every 14 seconds. You do it in relation to the quants, the mathematicians, have these algorithms, and they buy and sell in incredibly fast movements of stock in response to incredibly minute adjustments of stock prices. Well, I can react, or I can act and try to force stock price down. And high frequency trading, as a matter of fact, they run naked. High frequency traders run without firewalls, without antivirus, without any security whatsoever. Why? Because it takes time. I know one high frequency trading company that actually sued their switch vendor because the switches they sold them were 4, this is not a joke, 4 nanoseconds slower than they were promised, and that cost them $1 million a minute. Now do you understand what I'm saying? I can do this in such tiny increments, so fast. Nobody will know what's actually happening. I did it in big blocks when I talked about it. 10 companies, 12 companies. Why don't I do 100 companies, but in tiny little blocks for the next 3 months, and just start dropping breaches? 1 company at a time, 3 companies at a time, whatever. They might see a pattern there, but I can put the breaches in so many different places all over the world. Who's going to see a pattern? It just looks like come on, how many breaches have happened in the past year? Anybody? 5 or hundreds? Hundreds. You think an extra 100 breaches is going to get noticed? They happen to all be S&P 500. Oops. Does that make sense to everybody? Am I scaring you a little bit? Am I terrifying your wallet? It's a bit outre. It's a bit out there, but it is real. Any more questions? Yes?
Is there any mitigation strategies?
Not that I can figure out, no.
Could you tie a, let's say, U.S. constituency got a big, heavy involvement in cryptocurrency.
Right?
It went haywire. They could tie it to the dollar. Similar to the way other foreign currencies, when they went crazy in inflation, you tied it like the peso to the dollar, instantly the valuation was
Stabilized. Okay, so the question was, are there mitigation strategies that I've thought of? And the answer is, I can't think of any, because this is a very flexible strategy, right? We've talked about 3 or 4 different varieties of it already. Somebody said margin sell, so sell short. You're absolutely right. That's a variety of it. I can't think of a way to fix that. Then it was, well, can't we just say that if you buy a lot of cryptocurrency and it goes haywire, we're just going to stop its sale or tie it to the dollar, like Tether, I think it is, or Pacer, you said, and we'll stabilize it. Out of the roughly 1,000, it's like 900 and something, but we'll call it 1,000 cryptocurrencies that have been put out in the past couple of years, how many of them are dead coins? Anybody? Okay, let's start with 100. Who thinks 100 are dead coins?
The vast majority of all cryptocurrencies.
820, roughly? Over 80% of the cryptocurrencies that have been put out there are dead. Actually, cool note, does anybody know that some of them are alive again? Does anybody know why? Nobody knows who's moving these things. Somebody sweeps in, buys up a crap ton of this specific dead coin, and it starts moving a bit from wallet to wallet. Does anybody know why? No. Well, sort of. Markers. Markers. What do I mean markers? So if I'm laundering money, I need to remember that I owe you $1 million real money. You laundered 100 million. I give you, what's that, a percentage, 1%. I need to remember that I owe you $1 million, so I issue you a dead coin. One dead coin of this particular variety is $1 million. That's pretty cool. Money launderers, this is my suspicion, don't quote me on this, are using them as markers for the money they owe people. Is that sexy or what? It's really funny. Okay, sorry, just fun fact. Okay, any other questions? I realize that's not what you were expecting, and I apologize. I hope it was interesting and you learned something. Did anybody learn anything? Oh, thank God. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Yes, you have a question? Wow. Is it a good investment to invest in cryptocurrency? Did I hear you correctly? Was that the right? Okay, so the answer is yes. Absolutely, it's a fantastic investment to invest in cryptocurrency. If you're a sophisticated investor with enough money to actually make the market move where you want it to. Oops, I think I screwed that up. It's okay, we're done. But if you're not a sophisticated investor with enough money to make it move to where you want it to, it's a horrible idea. Why? Because frankly, mining is not worth it anymore, as far as I can tell. 2 weeks ago, the last I looked, mining wasn't worth it. I think Monero was worth it to mine a little bit, but it's so expensive and a pain in the butt to start up. It's not even funny. You got to outlay about $3,000 to $6,000 to do a tiny little mining rig, and unless you're getting free, if you have a solar plant, dude, go to town, mine away. Okay? If you want to buy crypto with fiat, with regular US dollars, it's volatile. If you want to buy some, go ahead. Look, think of it as gambling. Do you go to Vegas and put your mortgage money on the line? Well, some people, yes. Most people go, this is money I can afford to lose. The free drinks make up for the money. I'm good, right? It's play money. If you want to put play money on the line, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of interesting, and you get to learn. Go put play money on the line and put it in with a smart contract. Go put play money on the line and put it in with a machine intelligence, an artificial intelligence algorithm to work the markets for you. Yeah. See how far you get with that. But if it's more than play money, I really don't recommend it. Yes? Keep going. You had another question.
The artificial intelligence, if it's manipulated by somebody, still a big issue.
Say again, please. I'm sorry.
So if it's manipulated by a hacker or somebody, it's also going to be an issue too.
Of course. That's why I said play money. If you use your play money to learn something, whether it's the probabilities of dice and baccarat, whether it's the ability of a dealer to deal seconds in blackjack, and that's fun, whether it's how to count cards, or whether it's how to learn, whether it's how to work cryptocurrency, that's a worthwhile exercise in play money. If you use play money for anything else to actually invest, I mean, if you're going to actually invest, great. If you're going to invest in crypto to learn, play money is great. If you expect to take play money, of which we define as I don't care about it money, and put it in there expecting to be a billionaire, you really need a time machine to go back to 2010 first. Okay? Buy Bitcoin at $0.25 each, because I wish I'd done it. I've got friends that I used to work with. They're now billionaires. Sorry, I didn't do it. Sorry, honey. But I didn't. And right now, there are billionaires, by the way, who were multi-billionaires at 16 and 18,000, who are now only billionaires. Now, my heart bleeds for them, of course, but I think they'll survive. Again, Andrew Carnegie got a stock tip from his shoe shine boy and immediately sold out of the market. That was a week before Black Friday. That's a hint. Any other questions? Yes?
So the way you're describing like asymmetric use of like cryptocurrencies for like manipulating markets, it kind of reminds me of like 0 days, where it's like, okay, no one knows that it's fine, but once you discover that you're manipulating the market, be it like analytics or whatnot, at some point you're looking at these fast transactions, so determine these patterns, then the power you have is
diminished. So, by the way, I've got to point out the fact that my 3.5-month-old has amazing lungs, just like her dad. I'm very proud. Bye, honey. So, what's that?
Repeat it for
I'm repeating the question. So the question was, it sounds like this cryptocurrency stuff, it sounds like 0 days. What do you mean? Well, as soon as I use a 0 day, it's now revealed. The day of a 0 day is the most powerful day you have it, right? But once you use it, poof, people are going to start working on patching. People are going to start working on building, hardened systems. Every day diminishes the power of that 0 day, right? Unless you're MSO 8067, because I still find those damn things. You're right to a certain extent. The problem is the stock market. I can use a 0 day on a company, and if I use a 0 day on a company, do you think they release all of those IOCs to everybody else? I mean, doesn't every company share all their information to every other company, right? Yeah, right. Okay? If I use a 0 day on 10 different companies on the same day, all right, I get all 10 companies, don't I? Probably, maybe 9, maybe 10, whatever, but I get a majority of them. And then I can use that information 2 months later, 3 months later, 4 months later, 5 months later, 6 months later, 10 months later, 12 months later, whatever, to destroy them in the stock market. The information is a time bomb. They might not even know they were hacked if I'm careful, because I don't use it. I don't put it out there in the wild. So this strategy is well known. I mean, like we're talking about, okay, everybody knows that Sony got hacked, right? Everybody knows it. I mean, does anybody here surprised that Sony got hacked a while back? Okay. How come your companies aren't proof against that hack? Are they? Is everybody's company here proof against the hacks that they used against Sony? Put your hand up if you think you are. Even if you think you are, put your hand up. Good. Why? Because maybe you don't know what hacks were used? Does anybody know what hacks were used against Sony? Oh. You mean our information sharing sucks?
Well, I mean, the nature of Bitcoin is that it's distributed. You can look at all the data, so you have eyes on everything. So at that point,
right, except that I can have 3,000 wallets with a single Bitcoin in each, and all you know is that there's 3,000 wallets with a single Bitcoin in them, but I have the power of 3,000 Bitcoin. You just don't know that all those wallets are mine. They're anonymous by default, by design. Unless I interact with other wallets that are individuated, in which case then you can individuate me potentially based on the interaction. So, sorry, I have a talk on that too. And that was the anti-money laundering talk, by the way. So the point is that yes, you're right. Bitcoin can be tracked and traced and you can watch the transactions. but you might not be able to tell who's doing what or what they're doing because of the anonymous nature of it.
Well, I'm not thinking about more about the attribution, but more about like the system in general. So it's like if you're affecting the system over and over again, eventually you're like, okay.
So how long ago was Bitcoin at 19,000 or whatever it was at the top? A year ago. It took them a year, and by the way, it's not well known. Excuse me, it took them over a year, and it's not well known that Bitcoin was manipulated to that height. Did anybody here know that before I told you? A few of you. The rest of you went, but Bitcoin was at 19,000. Yes, because people made it to be 19,000. You didn't even know. And I don't mean any offense, I'm not trying to be rude here. Most of the people here didn't know. But if you didn't know, how can you be expected to protect or see that pattern? I apologize. What I'm saying is that basically that we're all overwhelmed with information, and finding those patterns, those anomalies, well, there's a lot of systems out there that claim to find every anomaly in a system. Yeah, there's a lot of anomalies out there, and some of them aren't related only to technical problems. Some of them are back to that business logic. I need to open the financial papers to see those anomalies, not the code tabs in Git. Does that make sense? Good question, though. Really good question. The answer is it's possible. It requires somebody who's dedicated and believes there's a problem, and then they go find it. They find those patterns, they find those anomalies, they find those weirdnesses. And sometimes we just don't even realize it until way too late. And when we don't share information, because we don't, it really makes it difficult. Make sense? Okay. Any other? Yeah.
So we're using data breaches to change people's perception to drop their stock.
Right.
People will eventually get jaded to data breaches in general, and then not like the traders.
So Target, one of the most famous breaches, right? What happened to their stock? Anybody? But the minute it happened, their stock dropped, I think, 5 points or something like that. It dropped some, right? Okay? And then everybody went, oh, yeah, that was like last week. It's cool. I'm going to go use my red card again. Okay? And the stock went back up. So yeah, you're right. And ever since then, but every time you get called, excuse me, sir, your card was compromised. We're going to be sending you a new card. Please don't worry. Everything's fine. None of your data was released, and you'll never have a problem with it. But we're going to put you on credit monitoring for a year because we're not sure. Every time you get one of those calls, you go, oh my God. And if you own stock in that company, mightn't you sell it? Okay, and if you read about it in the Wall Street Journal, what's the saying? Nobody wants to be read about in the Wall Street Journal. You never want to see your name in the Wall Street Journal unless they're interviewing you for a good thing, and how rare, it's much more common to be in there for a bad thing, right? I mean, talk to PW, no, just kidding. So the jading part, fear is immediate. Fear is scary. You get scared. Then logic kicks its head back in, and you go, oh, yeah, oh, it's not a big deal. It happens all the time. What's the big deal? All right, that's cool. But the fear, there's the immediate of, holy crap, I got hacked. Then there's the, my data might be compromised. Then there's the, I own stock in that company, and they got breached. Oh my God, I should sell it right in a broker, blah, 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 sell. In 2008, when the financial crisis hit this country, if you held your stocks, if you held your money where it was, you're okay now. How many people didn't? Most of them. They sold. And sold, they bought high and sold low, otherwise known as the other way around, the wrong way around. Make sense to everybody? Does that answer your question? People get scared, it's immediate.
You have to, well, the breaches would have to be big enough that they actually make news.
These days, okay, so to be honest, the news cycle is getting jaded with breaches. But remember, breaches are a great way to do filler content. If there's no active shooter, let's throw a breach in there. Sorry, I'm not fond of news organizations, okay? I mean, I love them to a certain extent. Sometimes they do great work. Weirdly enough, by the way, do you know the Christian Science Monitor? They are a great news group. They have Passcode, I think it's called. They have a fantastic technology section. Has nothing to do with religion at all. They are a fantastic hard news group. Weirdest thing ever, love them. Okay? Anybody else? Questions, comments, wisecracks, good jokes? Yes, in the back.
Do you have an opinion as to what might happen to the Bitcoin market? Should the Securities and Exchange Commission actually go through and start to regulate different investment vehicles that use Bitcoin and also initial public coin offerings? Just curious to
thought about that?
Oh my God. So the question was, what is my opinion, or do I have an opinion, forgive me, on whether what will happen if the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, regulate Bitcoin, the securitization of Bitcoin-backed IPOs, as well as ICOs, which is initial coin offerings. I have an opinion. Most of it is profane, but I will offer what I can. The securities, using Bitcoin to back securities is really a sexy idea for idiots. While it will in the future use, okay, I'm sorry, back up a step. There's cryptocurrency, and there's the technology that cryptocurrency is based on. Does anybody know what it's called? Blockchain. Okay. Blockchain is cool. Now, blockchain is not the only immutable database out there, but it is a very good example of a very good immutable database. I like blockchain. I'm building a company based on blockchain. It's cool, sexy, neat stuff. Cryptocurrency. It's interesting. It has its sexiness. Monero has some great privacy initiatives. I think they've got some brilliant mathematicians working on Monero. Okay, really, I do. And it's really cool to see what they're doing to make privacy interesting and useful. I love that. But cryptocurrency as an investment vehicle is terrifying because of the volatility, and because while we rely on the dollar to always be worth roughly 100 yen, or roughly 1.3 Canadian dollars, or you get the idea, we have not seen the resting point of cryptocurrency. So we see this. Here's the dollar against the yen. Okay? Here's cryptocurrency against the dollar. You get the idea, everybody? So when you securitize something in cryptocurrency, you have the opportunity to make $1 billion or lose everything you own. Your choice. Now, as for the regulation, holy God. So this slide shows you that these guys, these are everywhere that regulation is starting to happen. The regulation is happening. Coinbase is a money services bureau. It's a regulated entity, okay? And that's why it takes you 12 days to get a damn account with Coinbase. And KYC AML is such a pain in the butt. But you know what? They have these things called protections for the consumers. It's amazing, okay? That's why exit scams on the dark web are so easy, because there's no protection. Have a nice day. So what do I think about regulation? I think it's going to cause a lot of bureaucracy. I think it's going to cause a lot of problems and a lot of headaches. I think it's going to make a lot of people think that their crunchy, shiny granola things are just not cool anymore. And I think it's going to protect a lot of people who are not sophisticated investors. So overall, I think it's a good idea. How many people would have their money in the bank if it didn't have FDIC insurance? Well, okay, you've thought about it. Most of you haven't. Banks to you are solid. If they go out of business, they issue you a check. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, last call. 1, 2, 3, real quick.
So what techniques would be used to manipulate the price of cryptocurrency?
What techniques would be used to manipulate the price of cryptocurrency? Simple buying and selling. It's a pump and dump scam. Watch Boiler Room. It's an old movie, but it's great. And look up some of the pump and dump scams on Google. Honestly, it's exactly the same. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. My name is Josh Marpet. Hit me up on Twitter or email. Email's better. I don't really use Twitter anymore. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.